Welcome back again to the commentary box. We have match 13 of day 1 of the finals of Alliance Tournament 8. We have Paisti Syndicate versus Soldiers of Thunderstorm. You're listening to Verona and Angel Hun. You can see on the left hand side of your screen, highlighted in red on your overview, Paisti Syndicate. Fielding, wow, they have a Tengu, a Hurricane, 2 Sleipnirs, a Curse, 3 Dramiels, a Thrasher and a Scimitar.
And for Soldiers of Thunderstorm, another triple Macarial setup, 1 Balgorn, 3 Dramiels, and a Stiletto. Only 7 ships on the field for Soldiers of Thunderstorm.
Yep, and it's interesting to see. You can see viewers there on your screen with the tactical overlay that they've brought their logistics ship in. Paisti Syndicate, that
8.
is quite far out.
Sorry, it's 8 for Soldiers of Thunderstorm. I had to use my fingers for that one. Not a lot going on very fast on there. We're seeing a lot of medium jamming drones. An interesting choice considering the light drones get to the target faster and they would have a backup set. Perhaps an interesting decision by Soldiers of Thunderstorm. It looks like they're about to lose their first Dramiel. There is no logistics on the field for Soldiers of Thunderstorm, so once damage is dealt to a ship, it's very unlikely that it'll be able to claw it back. We have a Curse for Paisti Syndicate dipping into armor at the moment, where that team is, and the Curse just gets completely obliterated.
Yep, and immediately at the start of the match we saw medium shield maintenance bots out in absolutely spot on as soon as the match was go for Paisti Syndicate. They're absolutely all over the place. We've got Warrior 2s out as well, but on the part of Soldiers of Thunderstorm, we just have an absolute swarm of Vesper EC600s. ECM drones just so popular in this tournament.
It's an interesting choice. You don't really necessarily see the Vespas over the Hornets as they take double the amount of space and aren't necessarily doubly effective. The first ship for Soldiers of Thunderstorm, now a Dramiel, is down.
Second one there, just about to hit structure as well. One of the Macarials as well. Brown Katie looking very sketchy for Soldiers of Thunderstorm. No logistics on the field, so as soon as his armor's gone, he's well, he's out of it, obviously. And it's yeah, it's strange to see the triple max setup fielded with absolutely no logistical support at all. I'm going to try and get a look at those ships actually, see what they're fielding between each other.
It's unusual. It looks like a lot of the drones don't seem to be on target either. I'm not sure if Soldiers of Thunderstorm was unable to get those drones to the targets they were looking for. Not seeing a terrible amount of electronic warfare from Paisti Syndicate. Perhaps there's a ton of dampeners, but we're seeing the Macarials right on top of the Scimitar and opening fire on it.
Yeah, these Macarials are all ECCM fitted. You can see the effect there on screen. It's yeah, and they also apparently happen to be smart bombing as well, and they have actually smart bombed their own drones in the process.
So that's pretty much half their tank at this point. It looks like those smart bombs combined with the incredible damage of the Matari battle cruisers and Tech 2 battle cruisers was too much for that first Macarial. Very interesting, if not risky setup for Soldiers of Thunderstorm. I'm not sure I like the entire reliance on ECM drones, as you don't have as much finesse or control over them as you would through like an ECM module.
Yep, and Paisti Syndicate in trouble now. In fact, they have just lost their Scimitar. Their Scimitar is now down. He was target painted very heavily. He took an absolute beating from those 2 remaining Max, and he is down, of course. Soldiers of Thunderstorm not actually fielding any logistics of their own, any dedicated logistics ship, but with such a massive buffer of hit points in comparison to Paisti Syndicate, it looks as if Paisti might now be in trouble.
It's interesting though, the relative repping power of a Scimitar is not necessarily that high, so you'd find that your gang mates, especially in this setup, would actually fit a little bit more of a buffer to compensate for that. That Balgorn may have been extremely effective at neutralizing the effectiveness of that Scimitar, but I believe the passive tanks, especially on the Tengu, may be able to outlast Soldiers of Thunderstorm at this point.
Yep, absolutely, and that Balcon, the Balcon of Soldiers of Thunderstorm there, just completely neuting the hell out of the Sleipnir from Paisti Syndicate to keep its tank dead, and yeah, well.
We're about to lose the second Macarial, dipping into structure, bleeding very, very slowly. Still a fairly decent amount of DPS on the field. another battlecruiser heavy team. I find that those seem to be a lot more effective than the quadruple battleship teams. Even the faction battleships just don't seem to be able to edge out the battlecruiser type hulls.
Yeah, I think they're too heavy, and once they're target painted, they're done for in an arena like this. It's very difficult to keep them alive, especially if you only have a buffer, you don't feel logistics with them. You're relying basically completely on DPS and completely on alpha to try and get these things on top, get as much of the opposition off the field as quickly as you possible so that they can't chew through your buffer before you finish the rest of them off. It's well, second Sleipnir there, slipping into structure now. Macariel remaining from Soldiers of the Thunderstorm, looking sketchy. He's starting to lose quite a chunk of armor, but at this point it honestly could go either way, given the Newton power they still have on the field from the Balcon.
It's an interesting amount of damage being spread amongst the Paisti Syndicate team. With just that one Macariel on the field, there's an incredible amount of damage potential from Soldiers of Thunderstorm. I have a quick question for you. What do you think the role of the Tengu is in all this? It seems to be out of place.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like the guy's doing much. I mean, he's webbed, he's passively tanked. It looks as if he's dropping heavy missiles. I know one thing, he's absolutely surrounded by Warrior 2s and he's taking an absolute beating. Shield's starting to slip away, but he just seems like he's sort of out of place in the gang. I mean, it looks like he's damage fitted. The subsystems look familiar, so I can't see... I don't know, I mean...
I see heavy missiles coming from him. It just... the rest of the gang seems to really have a very defined role within the Paisti.
Why not throw another command ship in?
Even maybe a second Hurricane would have fit really well with this setup.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think is maybe he's running a gang link on there somewhere. Or
that's certainly possible.
I mean, he definitely seems out of place. I mean, it's a very heavily Matari-oriented setup.
I don't see a gang link effect coming off of him, but it is certainly possible.
I mean, of course, he has now been really heavily neutered by a Balcon, so it may have turned off.
True.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think he would be there really for is gang support. It's a very Matari-oriented setup. We've lost that Mac now as well for Soldiers of Thunderstorm.
I think with that Mac off the field, Soldiers of Thunderstorm's Balgon will not necessarily be able to do enough against Paisti Syndicate to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean,
losing three faction battleships is very, if it came down to points, is very weighted against you.
I'm gonna have to agree there, Angel. I mean, I can't see any real reason why Paisti Syndicate don't take this. To be honest, the Tengu still with a decent amount of shield left. If he is passive, he's gonna have a decent amount of recharge rate, that low down in his shield buffer. So Balcon is just about done for. That's all they've got left. So it's, I think, yeah, Paisti are going to take this without a doubt.
Do you think the support really played an enormous role in Paisti Syndicate's victory here? We don't necessarily talk about those small ships enough, but to see them survive this long and to see such a, not necessarily convincing victory, but a victory nonetheless from Paisti Syndicate, do you think those made a difference?
Well, even just a damp or two or a tracking disruptor or two can really mess a battleship up, so they're a valuable thing to have there. And we're seeing it time and time again, these fast, small, light ships being used purely just to field one or two EW modules, just enough to give them people that edge. And it's a very effective tactic. We've seen it used by countless teams.
The Dremel is also an interesting ship as it also is able to put 3 drones on the field at any given point in time with 1 spare. So for any ship's fielding a logistics ship, being able to put 3 logistics drones in that bay is actually a pretty interesting option from only a 4-point frigate.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Soldiers Thunderstorm there, I probably would have ditched the Balcon and brought a logistics ship, to be honest. And you probably would have stood a bit of a better chance with it.
Logistics ship and a pair of Daredevils.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would have been a more rounded, a more solid setup, a lot heavier armor tank, and I think given there was no really heavy hulls on the field from Paisti Syndicate there, they probably would have took them.
It was interesting. Once again, the team that actually fielded the full 10 ships comes out victorious in this matter. I think that was a real issue with the ECM drone essentially tanking of the Soldiers of Thunderstorm team. At this point, it's really just a matter of time as we have 3 Dremels, Thrasher, Hurricane, and Tengu left for Paisti Syndicate. A surprisingly competent team that I haven't really seen before, but
yeah, they've
very
been
impressed.
They've been a relative unknown until they came into the tournament. I mean, they haven't. I'd never actually heard their name before until they came into the tournament. Whether they're one of these teams who's got together for the tournament and they're going to try and make a run of it afterwards.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Hun Reloaded, sort of a dark horse in Alliance Tournament 5. You know, they came out of the wings and just stole the show.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see that from Paisti.
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, they've been relatively solid so far. They've lost a fair few ships this round, but again, they're going to clear the field eventually when they manage to catch this stiletto, and it's there we go. Matricane of Soldier of the Thunderstorm there, initiating self-destruct.
No honor.
No honor at all. Absolute dirty scumbag. Not even gonna let them run around and loot.
Those Dremels can easily catch up to him.
Yeah, he's gonna get caught. He's gonna get nabbed eventually when they want to, and I think he's pretty reserved towards that fact, and he just wants to get himself off the field as fast as possible, so that they can't loot. I mean,
personally,
if I was him,
I'd
I would
stop
have
right
just
next to the Hurricane. And just get volleyed.
Either that or just annoy Claw by boundary violation if you really wanted to.
I think that makes Claw's day to explode.
Oh, he loves that. I mean, he absolutely loves that. If he gets to blow someone up for being an idiot, then he loves it, and I'd be happy with that too. I'd love that job.
The iron claw of CCP. And one of the Dremels seems to have just barely caught up with the last remaining player of Soldiers of the Thunderstorm. Perhaps they didn't take a dive that first round. I mean, they really got obliterated the first round and struggled to get through to the finals by fielding only 81 points in the second evening and still coming out with a victory. I'm not sure if that was just underestimation of their opponent or just incompetence.
I think it would be awesome to see them go through. In all honesty, I'm starting to really like Paisti Syndicate. I mean, Soldiers of the Thunderstorm, they had one reasonably good match, one absolutely terrible one in the run-up to the finals, and I don't know, I mean, Paisti Syndicate are new on the scene. Good comparison when you compare them to Hun Reloaded because they were relative unknown. There was no real...
And they're they seem to be racially aligned. Hun Reloaded, obviously Hungarian, where you have Paisti Syndicate, I believe, are Dutch CCP Soundwave mentioned. I believe the majority are Dutch.
Yeah, we'd like confirmation of that. See if they are actually one nationality team.
And there goes the stiletto.
And there we go. Paisti Syndicate win. We can pass back to Uncle Soundwave in the studio.